Hello and welcome to Loppy Loves. If you haven't been here before, my name is Lauren and on this channel I talk about my life as an immigrant living in Iceland. In today's video I am going to be talking about working in Iceland, like how to find jobs, how it is working here, just things like that. Before we start, I would like to apologise for being missing for so long. I haven't posted since the end of January, since my birthday. So I didn't post at all in February and I didn't give any kind of update or anything, and I am so sorry about that. Things happened and life is even busier than it was even just 2 weeks ago for me now. I am planning to do a life update video soon about everything that's going on, but I can't promise a date when that will be because of how busy I am, and the schedule for uploading is going to be quite sporadic at the moment and I'm sorry about that. I am going to try my best to get through everything in today's video. I have a lot to get through, scribbled on one of my birthday card envelopes. And there might be some information missing, not all information might be up to date, because this is based on my experiences working in Iceland and the experiences of friends that I have here. So I hope that this video will be useful for you. And also quickly, I think it was Susan who wanted to see an Icelandic birthday card. So here you go, this is one of the cards that I received for my birthday. I think this is actually a kid's card, but it suits me quite well. So it just says Til hamingju með daginn, which is just congratulations with the day, and it was just blank on the inside. It just had the message written. But yeah, they're just the same as cards that we would have in the UK. Okay, so the first thing you need to consider if you want to work in Iceland is where you are from. Are you an EU or EEA citizen, or are you from the rest of the world? And if you are from the rest of the world, that is considered a third country in Iceland, and it is far more difficult to get a working visa if you are from a third country. And the UK is now considered a third country due to Brexit. I am lucky that I came before Brexit and my rights remain unchanged because I was already a resident in Iceland. But if you are coming from the UK nowadays, it is a lot more difficult. So if you are from the EU or EEA, you have the right to work in Iceland. You need to find a job, you need to find somewhere to live. So you just prove that you have enough to support yourself and that you have an address and a kennitala, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and then you can just register yourself as living in Iceland, and you can just stay here and work. And the proof of income, you don't need to have savings, you can, but if you have a working contract, that is considered proof of income to register your address here. And it is important to note that if you intend to work in Iceland for longer than 3 months, you must legally register your residency in Iceland. If you are from a third country, there are ways that you can work here, but it is a lot harder. You do need to get a working visa, working permit, and it's quite difficult. You have to have special education and experience for the role that you're applying for, and the company hiring you has to prove that they have searched within Iceland and all of the EU and haven't found a more suitable candidate than you. So it is a little bit tricky. There are some exemptions for having to have, experience and everything. If you are a seasonal worker that is needed desperately for some industries, you can work here for a few months. I think the slaughterhouse here in Selfoss hires a lot of people from third countries, especially from New Zealand, during slaughter season, just for a few months. I think athletes can also get an exemption if they're professional athletes doing training in Iceland. I'm not quite sure how it all works, or playing for the Icelandic team, I'm not quite sure. I think you can also get an exemption for religious work. That's probably not the best way of putting it, such as missionaries and nuns. I used to be friends with an Irish nun in Reykjavik. I really miss her. I haven't seen her in a while. I think she's been moved abroad now. Yeah, but there are things like this that you can do. You can also work as an au pair, and I think the maximum amount of time that you can be an au pair for is 2 years, and again there is rules around it. I think there is also an age limit to be an au pair in Iceland. There is a list of rules, you can find it online probably. And a while ago Iceland did introduce a new kind of visa for people outside of the EU, and you have to be from a third country to get this visa. So if you're from the UK you could do this, and that is if you are a digital nomad. You can get a remote working digital nomad visa in Iceland, which will allow you to stay for up to 180 days in Iceland, but you have to prove that you can support yourself financially while you're here. But that could be a good option. So look into the requirements, and if you have any special education and experience in a field that might be required in Iceland, you might be able to get a working visa for it. But personally, I don't know too much about it because I never had to go through that route. I was an EU citizen at the time I moved to Iceland. Now, you do need a kennitala to work in Iceland, which is an Icelandic ID number. I think you used to be able to go into a bank and pay some money to get one in Iceland, but I think they changed the rules a few years ago and I don't think you can do that anymore as far as I'm aware. Or if you were really lucky, like I was, you can be hired by a company that can apply for your kennitala on your behalf, and I think the companies don't have to pay to do that either, or it's a lot cheaper than it was to go into a bank and get one yourself. And honestly, if you come in the summer or just start looking for a job before the summer, in the months before, you might actually find a company willing to get a kennitala for you. I started my job in August. It was coming to the end of the summer period and it was a permanent job. They got my kennitala for me because they were desperate for staff, and it was just cleaning in a hotel. It wasn't a fancy job. So if you can find a job that gives you a kennitala, that would be amazing, because I'm not sure what the alternative is anymore to get one. And you need the kennitala to get paid, to work. I think you need it to open the bank account and get your wages. You also need it to be registered in Iceland as living here. So yeah, just try and look for a job that will give you that if you can. If you are coming here on a special work permit for a job, a particular job, your company will probably sort this all out for you, or they should at least. And when it comes to searching for a job, there are a lot of Facebook groups that post jobs, especially this time of year, right before the summer's starting. Yeah, you can look on these pages, join the groups. Some jobs will require Icelandic, a lot of the jobs in tourism will require English, and a lot of jobs will require one of those languages and prefer that you have the other language as well. Not all jobs. But if you are applying for a job on Facebook, a lot of the jobs will require you to already have a kennitala, and a lot of job adverts here actually say the applicant needs to have a kennitala already. So I think the best bet that you have to get a job that will provide you with a kennitala is either to start emailing companies months before you plan to come to Iceland and try to get a job lined up, or if you come to Iceland, you can literally just walk down the street if you're staying in Reykjavik, take your CV into places, physically talk to the manager and hand your CV. I know a lot of people that have had a lot of success finding a job very quickly, like within days of coming to Iceland, doing that, and with a job that is willing to get them a kennitala. If you're not fussy about the kind of work that you're willing to do, you will probably find it very easy to get a job here, especially in Reykjavik, in the tourism industry, cleaning hotels, reception in hotels, working in restaurants. These kind of jobs are quite easy to come across here. There are also some websites for finding jobs. One I can think of off the top of my head is job.is and Alfreð. Alfreð is probably the main job website in my opinion. It's often the first place people start looking, and it is a website that is written like Alfred, the name in English, so it's just alfred.is. That's probably the best website in my opinion, and you can also search by region. I think you can also search for particular jobs on there, and yeah, that's probably the best one. But there are also agencies that you can look at, especially if you want to work in particular fields, For example, if you want to work in the tech industry, there is a company here called Gecko that you can go through, and the woman who owns that company is actually from the same city as me in the UK. Yeah, so there are agencies that you can look into if you want a specific position or you want to work in a specific industry. But also, you should try to make friends with as many people as you can here, or just even have acquaintances. Try and talk to people if you come on holiday, meet people, stay in touch, make acquaintances, because these people can let you know about any opportunities that they hear coming up if they know that you're looking for a job. I occasionally have people reaching out to me that I have either used to work with or I just know. They don't even have to be close friends, just people that I know. And sometimes these people will reach out to me and say, I know of this role that's coming up at my friend's company or at the company that I work at. Do you want an interview for it? Or sometimes they just say, you know, we would like to offer it to you if you are interested. And then obviously you still have to go through the interview process because, you know, you have to. But, you know, you kind of know that you've been offered the job. Yeah, so it is really good to know people here and let people know as well that you are looking for a job, because opportunities can come out of nowhere. In Iceland, it really is who you know over what you know. And that's not always a good thing, but, you know, it's good to know if you're looking for a job here. Next, I wanted to talk about the work unions here in Iceland. I think that everyone has to be part of a union. I might be wrong, but I think that you are supposed to be in a union, but you can choose your union. Often when you start a job, your employer will just put you in a union that everyone is usually in, but you can choose what union you're in. You can request a specific union. Some unions are only for certain industries, so if you're not working in that industry, you can't request to be a part of that union. One of the main unions that foreigners are in, it's called Epling. I think I used to be in that union. I never used them, I don't know. I'm currently in the one that is here in Selfoss, like just the standard union here, which is a really good one. And you do usually have to wait a few months before you get access to the union services, I believe, because you have to have paid a certain amount into the union before. It might be like 3 or 4 months, or it might even be 6 months. I'm not too sure, and maybe each union has different requirements, but I think there is an option to pay upfront to get access to the services immediately. And if you change union, you should also do that, I think, because you still need to pay a few months to get access to the union services, even if you were already paying into another union before. But the unions here are good. A lot of people complain about them. I think personally I have been helped out a lot by my union here before. So unions will give you advice on how much you should be paid, and if you think something's not quite right at your workplace, you could go to the union and talk to them about it, and they will let you know if things are legal or not, and if you're getting paid the right amount, if the working conditions are legal. You can also get refunds on lots of things through being in the union. It's great. So for example, in my union I can get a refund on my glasses, I can get a refund on dental care, and it's up to a certain amount per year, and it's also a percentage that they'll pay of it per year as well. I'm not quite sure how they work it all out, but there is like a percentage and a cost limit as well. So I think they'll pay like 90% of some things, or like 50% of some things, up to a certain amount. Yeah, and they actually paid for a lot of my driving licence. I got a big refund for my driving lessons. They didn't pay for everything, but it was quite a high limit for that, so that was really nice. And I did have to go to the union once to get some lost wages back, because one of my employers didn't pay me for my last month of work, and it turns out he was underpaying me for the whole time. And so I had to go to the union and give them power of attorney to like fight on my behalf to get the money back. It took about a year, but I did get a lot of money back in the end, and I think it was well worth it. So yeah, make sure you are in a union. Your employer should put you in a union anyway, but just double check. Work contracts here, in my experience, they are not always just freely given. You usually have to ask for a contract, because a lot of contracts here are just verbal. There is an official contract that can be printed out online on some official website. I can't remember what it is, but that's usually the contract that's printed, unless the company has their own specific contract. You can request a contract, I think it's after 2 months, it might be after 3 months, and at that point they can't refuse if you are still working for them. Can't remember if it's 2 or 3 months, but there is a point where they can't refuse it if you ask for a contract, but they're not necessarily going to come to you. So if you want a contract, which you do need it if you are registering your residency here in Iceland, because that's your proof of income, yeah, make sure you ask for the contract. The work environment here, it's quite laid back, to say the least. At least a lot more laid back than working in the UK, in my experience. In the jobs that I've had here, some of the jobs are quite similar to jobs that I've had in the UK. And I've actually had the same amount of jobs here in Iceland as I have had in the UK. So yeah, it's quite laid back. Generally, phones are allowed to be used, which can be nice, but can be annoying. In the UK it's quite strict usually about phone use. I even had a job where our phones had to be in the locker and we couldn't have the phones out on the shop floor, and the lockers were 4 stories underneath the shop floor, so you were so far away from your phone. And the longest shift I did there was 16 hours, so it's a long time to not use it at all, but that was the rules. Here, even if phones are not allowed, technically, a lot of the managers will be on their phones and they will not care if you're on your phone during work. And you will often find that when you go to the supermarket or if you go to a restaurant, you'll see the staff standing around scrolling on their phones. Yeah, so it is a bit strange, but they are relaxed in general, workplaces. I think sometimes too relaxed, to the point where things aren't very efficient. That's my personal opinion, of course. And in industries where there are likely to be a higher amount of low-wage workers, which are often the jobs that foreigners take, there can be quite a lot of abuse to workers. Like, I don't mean like physical abuse, but there can be a lot of wage theft, there can be bad working conditions, bad management. My first job cleaning the hotel, the owner of the hotel had some issues, it's probably the best way of putting it, and she would come and scream at us, and we were all very on edge and stressed all the time because we didn't know what mood she was going to be in. It can be like that, so that is one thing to be a bit wary of. I have heard that the office culture here is better. I have never worked in an office in Iceland, so I don't know myself. I just know from people who I'm friends with here, who I've known that work in offices. Office jobs here sound actually quite nice. It's still not my thing. I hate working in offices, but it sounds okay. And in offices, you often are supposed to take off your shoes. That's one thing I've noticed actually. I think every job I've had here has required me to take off my shoes when I get to work, even though I am walking in the same places as customers. I think in 3 out of 4 jobs I've had here, I'm walking in the same places as customers with dirty floors and stuff, but I still need a separate pair of shoes for work than to walk to work, which is quite interesting. And going on from that, the work uniforms. Not every job has a uniform, but usually the requirements are the same if you are in a job with a uniform. They usually want black trousers. Often they'll say no leggings, so it needs to be like black jeans or black trousers, and a black t-shirt. And if you are moving to Iceland and looking for a job, just any job, I would recommend bringing black trousers, black t-shirt and black trainers, like shoes, sports shoes with you, so that you can do trial shifts in those clothes and still fit in, because that's what they usually ask for. If you were doing a trial shift or if they are waiting for your uniform to be ordered, they'll usually ask you to come in black t-shirt, black trousers and black shoes if you can. And this is actually, this was my uniform at my first job, the cleaning job. I have 2 of these t-shirts. I left that job 5 years ago and I still wear these t-shirts because I love them. So it's usually a black t-shirt, and even the uniforms I have had is usually a black t-shirt with the company logo or something like this. design, a design on a black t-shirt. Yeah. And like I said, bring a spare pair of shoes, that you just leave the shoes at work and get into them when you get there. If you are quitting a job in Iceland, if you've been there under a year, I can't remember what the notice period is. I think some people have told me it's a week, but I always just give in a month's notice anyway, like the UK. You know, we always give a month's notice. But if you've been at a company for over a year, you should be giving them 3 months' notice. Which in the UK you would only give 3 months' notice if you were a manager or in a higher position. Here it doesn't matter. If you've been there for over a year, you give 3 months' notice. There is sometimes an option to go earlier without your notice period. You have to sign a document and you have to get permission from the company. Otherwise, I think if you just leave, they can withhold some of your wages from you. I'm not too sure how it works because I've never been in that position. But yeah, so 3 month notice period if you've been working for longer than a year. And something here that is a bit scary is that a company doesn't really need a reason to fire you here. I've never been fired, fortunately, either in the UK or Iceland. But in the UK it's quite difficult to fire someone because you can be taken to a tribunal if you were found to fire someone unlawfully. But here they don't really need a reason, they can just fire you. And they don't really differentiate between firing and making someone redundant. So in the UK we have 2 words for that. There is a redundancy, which is when the company no longer have a position for you, not due to your own fault, due to just the company's making changes or they don't have enough money anymore. And that's the redundancy. And then firing is if you were at fault and the company are throwing you out for something that you've done. Here I don't hear a lot of people differentiating between this. So if you do get made redundant, make sure that you ask the company to have an explanation on a piece of paper that says like it wasn't your fault, that they were just, your position wasn't available anymore, on their specific letter-headed paper, and try to get that before you leave the premises that day so that you can go to the unemployment centre and show them that you weren't fired. Because even though I've never been in that position myself, I think that if you were fired because it was your fault, or if you just quit a job without having anything lined up, there is a few months that you have to wait before you can claim unemployment benefits. Not too sure though, because I've never been in that position myself, but make sure that you do get, you know, an explanation that it wasn't your fault. Holiday allowance is something that I nearly forgot. So we have here summa free, which is summer holidays, which if you've been working at a company for at least a year, you will be entitled to. I still don't quite know how it works. It's usually between 4 to 6 weeks off in one go in the summer. I think, yeah, it averages out like 5 weeks. And you take that in one go. But you can also take time off during the year. It's not the only holiday you have. I still don't know how they work it out. I know that if you do overtime and work red days, which are like bank holidays, in my company, you will get time back in extra holiday. You can also just take unpaid days, but yeah, like I said, I don't know how it all works, but you do get a long summer holiday here. So I think that's about everything I have on my list today. I hope that you found the video useful. Like I said, not all of the information might be accurate, it's just my understanding of how it works here, because I'm still a bit confused about it myself, honestly, after 6 years. And yeah, and some of the information might also be out of date, but yeah, I hope you learned something, I hope you find it useful. I will try to post again soon, but like I said, I'm really busy at the moment. Yeah, some people have been messaging me through Facebook and Instagram and commenting on these videos as well. If I haven't replied to you, I am really sorry. I'm not intentionally ignoring people, I am just super busy, just swamped with everything at the moment. I will get back to you when I can and when I remember, because sometimes people message, I see it, get rid of the notification and forget later. So I'm not intentionally ignoring you, I am sorry. So I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!